Consistency is key to success. Consistency has been virtually non-existent with this team, with this program in the past. Is 2020 different? Talking Miami football, we got Cam Underwood on the line, the man from State of the U. We encourage and invite you to head on over there to stateoftheu.com as a Miami football destination. Cam, how you doing today?
I'm good. Just enjoying a day off from the secret day job and figured we'd hop on here and talk a little Miami Hurricanes football. You know, got a big week, so moved up the conversation to a Thursday as opposed to a Saturday morning, game day and everything. So, yeah, we'll have a good time. And
I'm guessing we're probably about 10 months removed from the previous win in the ACC. The last time to win an ACC game would have been sometime maybe in early November.
November 9th against Louisville. That's what I was saying. It was 307 days between wins when we won the opener against UAB. So if you add on a couple weeks to that, yeah, we're in the 321-ish range coming up on Saturday, I want to say. So, yeah.
Now, I've done a bit of an analysis with other people and with my own take on the game after taking in every play. And my thought is that if Miami leaves Louisville on the road against a quality opponent as a 2 or 3 point underdog with any kind of win, that's a success. They, from about the second possession of the game, you could make the argument, dominated that game. It could have been worse than 47-34. The 34 were tacked on at the end, the last touchdown.
The last two touchdowns, really.
It was a near dominant performance. I felt as though once you made the field goal to make it 37-20, last nail in the coffin, game over, 3-score game, 10 minutes left. Now, they did score to make it 40-27, 2-score, 7 minutes with a good team. That's doable. It's still a big stretch. You win that game 97-8% of the time. So it was still possible, but I felt as though, just continuing to answer, even when they scored a couple touchdowns in the third quarter, there was just a difference between the two teams that was substantial.
Yeah, and I think that bore itself out to be true. It was readily apparent if you were watching the game that Miami was clearly the better team than Louisville. Which I delighted in because, like I said, there were a couple of guys from the Louisville side who were talking a lot of noise, like journalists and bloggers and things like that, because, Miami, they're so cocky and everything. Like the last time we played them, we hung 52 on them. We had a quarterback who's now playing JUCO football, set a program record with six touchdowns last year. That was Jaron Williams. So like Louisville to, kind of beat their chest and everything and be like, oh, we're Louisville. It's like, you beat Miami 3 times in your history, and those were 3 times in a row, and they were substantial. You had the bowl game with Teddy Bridgewater where, he came out in the fourth quarter for the final possession of his career, and they almost took a delay of game and called timeout so he could, get all of the applause at the Russell Athletic Bowl in Orlando, saying, okay, like, this is my crowning moment. I'm a junior. I'm leaving. We blew out Miami, my hometown team that I was committed to. They fired that coach. The new coach didn't want me. Now to close my career, we don't whoop that ass. Give me all of that. Give me all of that. Miami went up there a couple years later, the Mario Urrutia game, where, we stomped on the Cardinal head and they hung 50 on us, and everything where Mario Urrutia caught that pass and then stiff-armed basically his way down the field. You know what I mean? Like with Brad Kaya's first start in 2014, the ACC opener for Louisville. That was the game after the Teddy Bridgewater game. Went up there and lost again. So those are the 3 times that you've ever beaten us. And then you want to talk about, like we're this, we're that, we're the big and bad and blah, blah, and whatnot. Like, again, we just hung 50 on you last year, and we should have hung a 50 burger on you again this year and only had the ball for about 23 minutes because we went out there and just did what we had to do. And the defense is out there for 38, 39 minutes because we're getting off the field so quickly because, look, it was different, And the thing that, I saw a couple of people point out in various videos, whether it was our guy Roman Marcianti, whether it was a couple other guys, Justin DeTavio looked at it, another couple guys who were not, with State of the U did also. Look, you went out there and got information and used that information to great success. What information? If you went trips to the field, right, they're going to go cover 0 on the backside, on the short side. All right. So ran that a couple of times in the first half, Didn't have successful plays, but you got the information and said, oh, if we go here, they're going to do this. You come out the first play of the second half, you motion to that. What happens? You run it into the short side. Cam Harris is still running. You ain't nobody over there. It was nothing but air and opportunity, and he scores from 75 yards out. First play of the second half. Come down and score again. Oh, okay, cool. We're getting a flex. All right. We're going to run that again. And we're going to show quarterback power, which you stopped in the first half with that same cover zero look to the short side. But the little wrinkle we're going to do is we're going to put Jalen Knighton on a short wheel route, fake the QB power, flip it, and Jalen Knighton still running. I mean, there's that screenshot of him at the 50-yard line, and the camera has to keep zooming further out to find somebody on Louisville's defense. There was nobody within a 25-yard, at least, square of Jalen Knighton on that when he had that ball around the 50. No one ever. Like
he gave it a wave about the 20.
Yeah, no, it was at the 30. He said, yeah, okay, cool. At the 30, he put his arms up, and everything. He almost pulled a Deshaun Jackson when he did the track finish, and then he had crossed the goal line. The ball barely hit the front of the plane, and then he dropped it, going into the end zone. But he's still running, still to this day. However many 6 days later, he's still running because there was nobody over there. And that's the difference. And it was clear, and then the last touchdown was the same thing, where you went trips to the field side. You said all of the backup quarterbacks and Rhett Lashley are literally jumping up and down. Hey, to get attention because nobody was on Brevin Jordan. And he catches the ball at the 25 for the final touchdown, wide open, doing backflips and cartwheels into the end zone. It was clear that Miami was different. Look, that first play to Brevin Jordan on the fifth read, and Manny Diaz on one of his shows that they do with Hurricane Sports, he talked about that play, which was, a short pass to Brevin. Actually, this is not the one where he almost dove to the end zone. The one before that, which was a first down conversion on third, he went through and said, okay, look at De'Aaron King. Read 1, 2, 3, 4, and he came back to number 5 for Brevin Jordan for that dump down, and then he makes a play. You go to then that quick bubble where you have Michael Redding III, a true freshman, making a beautiful block. You got Brevin Jordan hurdling a guy, and then he's like, yo, I smell the end zone. I'm going for it. Stepped out at the 3.5, trying to plant that foot to drive for it. But, I mean, if the field is this much wider, that's a highlight reel touchdown. That's a highlight reel play regardless. But you have plays like that over and over and over again. And then defense, okay, they gave up a little bit, but then you don't want to talk about it. You get 3 and out here. You get 3 and out there. Stops and scores. Like it was a 3-score game. Well, 47-34 ends up being a 2-score game. We could have hung 60 on them if we don't, you drop a touchdown so you get a field goal, settle for a couple more field goals, things like that. And look, we got one of the best kickers, if not the best kicker in America now. So, I mean, he's banging in 57-yard field goals, tying a program record where the guy last year was missing 22-yarders. Hello, somebody. 4 for 4 on all those kicks. Made every single extra point. That was, easy peasy, chicken greasy. You know what I mean? Like, Miami was different than Louisville. There was a clear separation there. And I think that bore itself out to be true.
I took a beating on Saturday night, did a live stream, because I was taking a beating from Miami fans, and rightfully so. That's why we make predictions. I picked Louisville 31-27, even though as I went back to my very, very simple analysis on the game, I should have just dumbed down my simple analysis to conclude that Miami would win the game, because I said Louisville's got a near elite offense, although I had questions about the offensive line, and those bore true. But questions about the offensive line, but elite skill players. I really like the quarterback. They're an 8 to 8.5 on offense on a scale of 1 to 10. Miami, just as many playmakers, just as much speed, if not more, but they haven't played together. I hadn't seen them play together. Louisville, that collection of players, Hawkins, Tutu, Marshall, and of course Cunningham, had played together. So I gave them an edge on offense just based on that. But in terms of speed, athleticism, ability, I didn't draw any distinction going into the game. Defensively, unless Louisville is better, which they showed a little bit to be better against Western Kentucky than they were last year, but again, group of 5, not the same type of opponent. They were like a 4, to be kind, a 4 on a scale of 1 to 10, because they were bottom 10 in any metric defensively last year, where Miami is one of the couple best in the ACC and probably a top 5 to 10 defense in America. That should have been my clue right there. But I went home field, Satterfield. I trusted more, and there was just some kind of cachet given to Louisville during the offseason that they didn't necessarily earn. Great jump from 2 to 8 wins, but some kind of cachet that people are looking for out there.
Well, and the other thing is, and I said it here, that was the kind of game that Miami routinely has lost over the course of the last 10 to 15 years. You go into a hostile environment, a ranked team. Was it 3-30 or 3-23 in the previous 26 games on the road against ranked teams? Now that's 4-23. Even though there were clear deficiencies on that Louisville side, there were, on defense, they didn't necessarily, the offensive line without Mekhi Becton. Like I asked one of their writers at Card Chronicle, our sister site over on SB Nation, I asked them about that. And, he offered some concerns about that, but it's the kind of game that Miami has pretty routinely lost for a good long, 10, 15, 20 years almost. So it was easy to come to that conclusion absent contrary evidence, which we got on Saturday. But, prior to the game, it was pretty easy to look at and say, I get that there are these things to like about Miami, but there's always been things to like about Miami, and we see the record. I mean, look back to last year. Come on now, FIU, Duke, Georgia Tech, all these teams, all these games where, on paper or, in theory, it should have been one way. And in practice, in reality, it was a different way. So I don't necessarily think that it was baseless to pick Louisville to win. And again, like I said, when I picked them to win, what was the last thing in that statement? Everybody knows it. Prove me wrong. And they did. Emphatically proved me wrong, proved you wrong also. I mean, because we were about the same on score, but I don't think it was completely out of left field to say, hey, Louisville will win this game, maybe by a score, close because, of Miami falling flat. Miami didn't fall flat. Miami looked like a Miami that Miami has seldomly looked like. And hopefully, that is one of the building blocks towards going forward.
Houston Kings with a comment. I get amused by these comments because just so you watch, you like, you subscribe. If you hate me, that's fine. I really don't care. But be fair. Let's be fair. My analysis of any team, it does not change depending on the guest. I just laid out for Cam what my thought process was, and it's on record.
Yeah.
It's not like I secretly have these thoughts and predictions. Then I come out after the game and say, I thought Miami was going to win by 20. It's all out on record. Whatever my opinion is, it's out on record. And I went down a couple different times on my deduction that Miami should win this game based on having a better defense. I believed they should win the game, but I still picked Louisville. Now, being a hater, I always kind of am curious about that term because as soon as you pick somebody's team to lose, I guess you're a hater. I picked Miami to go 8-4 last year. They went 6-6. I picked them to go 9-3 the year before. They went 7-5. Would I be a hater? I have picked them to lose games, but I have overestimated them the past 2 years.
I've overestimated Miami for the last who knows how many years. And again, me, veteran blogger, coming up on a decade doing this. I graduated from the University of Miami. I'm wearing a shirt from Honor Band, and I don't even know which year this was that I went down there. No, I had to have been in college when I worked this event. So this was probably like a 2004 Honor Band T-shirt from when I was in the School of Music and things like that. Like I'm orange and green and all the way through. And I picked us to lose. So am I a hater? Like, you know what I mean? It's one of those things. Like, hey, sometimes you look at the situation and again, I openly said, I hope that I was wrong and that they showed me something that they haven't shown me very much in the recent past. And I was, and they did, and I love it.
So when you do what Cam does and do what I do, and they're similar in some respects and they're different in other respects, it's difficult to do, but it is possible to love your team and then also be objective.
Yes. Yes. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, and people, shout out to Ricky the Prince, NWO podcast. What's the other one? Storm Surge with Kevin Gabby, one of our former guys at State of the U, who's now in a full-time media job with Inside the U and 247 Sports. But, people want all of us always to be like Ricky. And Ricky is just like the loudest, most Miami bro homeboy Canes fan that you will find. I mean, you've seen the videos of him going to all the stadiums. I mean, even, just cheering and loud and everything. And I mean, when we linked up at some of these tailgates and things, Ricky and I are so much more alike than people know. I am that guy. I am like, I'll get around Ricky. Hey, yo, talk your stuff. Like, like pass that bottle, we're going to put that back. We're going to get loud. And trust, if I turn the volume up to 12 or 14, you're going to hear me from a far distance away. And I am very much that. And it very much lives in me. And I root and I cheer and I support this team as hard, as strongly as, if not more strongly, than most people listening to the sound of my voice. However, me being the person that I am, I'm pragmatic, I'm reasonable, I'm realistic. So I use that skill to evaluate things. Because look, do I want Miami to win every single week? Absolutely. Do I want them to win twice this week against Florida State? Hell yes, absolutely. But when it was 2013 and Florida State was Florida State, then I couldn't reasonably say that we were going to win. They were a championship team. They're one of the best teams in the last decade. And Miami was clearly not, so like it's the duality of things, like, yes, I want them to win, but I also have to look at the situation realistically and trust and believe. If you go back and look at what I've said in years past and things, and it's maybe been a little bit more muted, check out what I have to say when it comes to prediction time today. That's all I'm going to say.
And that's what we have is a lot of predictions coming down both today and a few other live streams and other content that I posted on Miami with a big Florida State game coming up. And of course, we did a Florida State live show on Tuesday night. And so the Miami scores are in the stratosphere, and I understand the optimism. And as I started the show out by saying any win on the road against Louisville, a team that the other point I was going to make about Louisville is I think every offseason in any sport, but especially college football, people are looking for the team that's on the rise. And they were latched onto by a number of people around College Football Nation as being that team. And we'll see. I picked them to go 7-4. I picked Miami to go 8-3 this year. So now we move on to Florida State, and it's easy to make the deduction after one ACC game for each team that Florida State, this is difficult to do, Cam, and all of these metrics that happen against Georgia Tech. 12.5-point favorite at home, facing a true freshman quarterback making his first start on the road. You take a 10-0 lead after you march down the field for an easy touchdown in the first drive of the game. You block 3 kicks.
4, wasn't it?
Did they block 4 kicks in that game?
Wasn't it 3?
I think Georgia Tech had another kick blocked against UCF that turned out to be their 4th.
Okay, yeah, it was. Okay.
But they blocked 3. You blocked 3 kicks. You get 2 picks.
Mm-hmm.
You score easily on the first drive. You're a 12.5-point favorite. You go up 10-0. Freshman quarterback on the other side making his first start, and you lose 16-13. That was a deplorable performance. In just about every phase of the game. I know defensively they only gave up 16 points, but in the second half they got moved up and down the field. Like they looked good defensively in the first half, and they were facing what's been a putrid offense. That may not be the case under Jeff Sims this year. And 16-13, they lose at home against Georgia Tech. Couple that with a Miami performance against Louisville, and as you can expect, Miami fans are excited and expecting an enormous victory in this one. You've probably seen some scores.
Mm-hmm. And I've made one myself. And look, Georgia Tech didn't even have their most dangerous offensive weapon in true freshman Jahmyr Gibbs in the opener against Florida State. And you saw what he did in the second game. I think they ended up losing that game. But, he came out and showed why, this is a kid who, I don't know how none of the other big teams didn't go after him. He wanted to go to Florida for a while, and they were like, no, we're good. Also, they didn't want Jalen Knighton, which, or so they say. All right, cool. Florida State, Georgia, anybody could have had Jahmyr Gibbs, really, because he's out there running for 400 yards a game in high school. No, I didn't misspeak. It was literally 400-something yards. Go look up the beginning of his season when his recruiting really blew up because, he had multiple 400-yard games and things like that. He didn't even play against Florida State, and they still found a way to lose. And let it not go by the wayside, they lost to a true freshman quarterback who was committed to Florida State, who then, when the coaching staff changed, Mike Norvell told, seek shelter elsewhere. We do not need you or want you in this program. And that was one of the forced decommitments or things where the program went in a different direction from what the kid wanted to do. And the kid from Jacksonville who wanted to be at Florida State, begged to be at Florida State. And the coaches at Florida State currently told him, thanks, but no thanks. See ya. Go elsewhere. He goes to Florida State and comes into Florida State, into Tallahassee, into Doak Campbell Stadium. The stadium he wanted to play in and have a locker room in, and with the garnet and gold on the sideline across from him that he wanted to be wearing, and you beat them? Yo, that's huge. That's huge. And Florida State, they looked pretty bad. I just retweeted a video from a FSU guy who has a Patreon page apparently, and he was looking at our defensive line, which is supposed to be elite for Florida State, just getting pushed all over the place by Georgia Tech's offensive line. I don't know exactly when in the game the clip that he broke down on the preview of his Patreon was, but it was pretty decisive. It was pretty clear what was going on there. So yeah, that was not great. And look, you lose by 3 and you block 3 kicks. So 2 extra points or 2 field goals and an extra point and everything like that. It was, it was not great. And then all of a sudden you just bench James Blacksman in the middle of the game for 3 series. Not because of injury or real ineffectiveness, because again, like Mark said, they went down early, 2 drives, 10-0. Hey, if we're getting points on every possession, that seems to be a positive situation for us. But then all of a sudden that stops and things like that. It was, it's when you compare, obviously it's not apples to apples, but I think people are going to be confident saying that Louisville will probably be a better team this year than Georgia Tech, or a more competitive team. And Miami did to them what they did to them, and Florida State let Georgia Tech do the opposite to a team that's less talented and probably going to be less successful over the course of this season. And then you add in Miami's win against UAB, which again is one of the better Power 5 or Group of 5 teams that any Power 5 team will play this year. Most of the time you're going down and you're getting teams that you're very, very, very overmatched against. Miami was had more talent than UAB, but UAB would probably beat some of these Power 5 teams, out there. I probably would say UAB would probably beat Florida State if we're being perfectly honest about things. So, or that would be a field goal game one way or the other. It wouldn't be, Florida State, they're not looking to be in a great position. And I don't have any love lost for that because like I said, I've been blogging for about a decade. So I remember the Randy Shannon years. I remember losing 9-6 at South Florida. I remember all the Al Golden teams. I remember getting blown out by Florida State some. I remember when we were in a pretty bad spot, similar to what Florida State is now. And look, I dealt with that. I'm still here. I'm still standing. I was still strong through that. And even in the midst of that, we always said, things are cyclical, and it might not be tomorrow, and it might not be next week, and it might be 8 or 10 years from now, but things are going to change. And previous Cam, who said that, is now right, because current Cam is saying that, and things have completely flipped up.
Got Cool Dog 305 here. I'm glad you were man enough to admit that you were proven wrong.
Facts.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I think people should understand, anybody who makes predictions, if you're looking for the individual who makes predictions that never gets one wrong, then you might as well shut off the internet and never get on. We all miss predictions.
Right. That's just not realistic. Exactly. That's not just realistic and everything. It's just like, oh yeah, the one person who predicted every game score 100% fairly. I was like, cool. So why aren't you just listening to that person and then betting the farm on everything that they say with the exact score? You know what I mean? And that's just, nobody's that proficient, or has that kind of foresight. But, we look at situations, we look at, the things that we look at to make informed decisions, and we go off of those. And sometimes they're right, and sometimes they're wrong. But I think that having a reasonable foundation, not just I'm a Miami bro and Miami's going to win by 1,000,000 points every week, bro. I think that, having a reasonable foundation for the predictions and things that we make is the way to go. And like I said, I openly rooted for Miami during the game. I was tweeting it and everything. And yes, But before that, I said, again, that was a game that normally, through the past few years, Miami would lose. So I'm going to pick them to lose because they've proven to me that they normally lose those situations. But I hope they prove me wrong with their performance and success, and they did. So I can't be mad at that.
I'm off to a nice little start at 9-5 against the spread, so I'll take that if that can continue to repeat itself at 64%. The other part about it is that to provide good content and to provide accurate predictions aren't always the same thing. If truth be known, if you take a lot of the people that make predictions on the big networks, they know football backwards and forward, and they know their stuff. There are some good ones, and there are some not so good ones. There are some great ones. They don't necessarily make good predictions. Some of them make horrible predictions.
Right.
It's just a different skill, and it's people take it seriously, and they grind down the numbers, and they really fancy themselves as an odds maker of sorts. I don't. I'm just making predictions. I just kind of eye the game and boom, make the prediction, and there it is. So, Cam, in regards to game one, who flashed that's out of the norm? And, you don't have to take it to the nth degree because I'll take a person in particular and get you started. Bubba Bolden for me. Now, I had all the information on Bubba Bolden from high school that he was a tremendous recruit. So it wasn't like it was a shock to me. But I saw criticism in the chat a number of times about Bubba Bolden's blown assignments in coverage. But as a guy who came up and made plays, like I recognized a couple times in the flat, you talk about nobody being in the picture. There were a couple times in the deep flat that a receiver for Louisville would catch the ball. There wasn't a guy in the screen. He comes out of nowhere and just does a beeline and just wraps that kid up and drops him right to the ground. His tackling skills are phenomenal.
No, they are. And, he's he led the team with 11 tackles in the game. I know that, if you're looking at the passing stats, like, Daniel Gould on Twitter, he puts up some things and said, passes towards Bolden's area were 10 for 10. But that doesn't tell the whole story because, like you're talking about, if it's in the deep, on the sideline there, and that's like his zone area, but like there's another guy going deeper. So, he has to be the last line of defense and come up to make that play. That's what the defense is designed to do if you have guys who can do it. So he went and did it. And, Bubba Bolden, I said it and I wrote it in the good, the bad, and the ugly. He covered the entire field in that secondary. And there were consecutive plays in the third quarter, I believe it was, where Louisville completed a pass in the flat to the offense's left. And Bubba Bolden made the tackle on the sideline to the offense's left. They line up, they go quick, they complete a pass to the offense's right in the flat, and Bubba Bolden is there to make the tackle on the sideline. So he literally went to 53 1/3 yards width of the field and made 2 tackles on consecutive plays. Wasn't tired, wasn't late. Guy didn't get up the sideline because he didn't have the breath control and the conditioning to get there. He was like, look, if I got to be anywhere from 10 yards or 5 yards past the line of scrimmage, deeper, from sideline to sideline, anywhere in that box, I'm going to be there. I'm going to make the play. And he did, so like I get the people saying, oh, well, the Louisville completed a lot of passes against him. They completed some checkdowns against him. And then, okay, they did later scheme it where, and Miami doesn't have that many cornerbacks. And so you got to go do some weird things. And one of those weird things was putting Bubba Bolden on Tutu Atwell, which is a matchup in Louisville's favor. And they took advantage of it. I mean, and look, you're not going to be perfect. No defensive back is going to go an entire, career without getting a pass called against them or, anything like that. And yeah, there were those times when he was up against Atwell, Bubba Bolden was a little overmatched in terms of coverage. I mean, but still, for the most part, he got Tutu out on the ground, which is amazing. Tutu did have that touchdown late, so against Bolden's coverage. But no, he was pretty literally everywhere on defense. So that was really exciting to see. For me, a guy who flashed last week, I could say Brevin Jordan, who's the best tight end in America, because, he is, and he did, and he was amazing. And that was great to see, integrating him into this offense in different ways because he's such a dynamic talent. I really just got to go with Rhett Lashley, man. We talked about the vanilla game plan from the UAB game. We're going to run these 5 running plays. It's like, what's the name? Herman Boone in Remember the Titans. I run the veer, 6 plays, it's Novocaine, give it time, it's going to work. And that was pretty much what we did in the opener. And then, then you saw the wrinkles come out, and then you see, okay, things are working. You hit another home run play. Then you hit a home run pass play tonight, and then you get another home run here, you get another home run there. Then you got even short passes where guys make plays. Again, like that play that I talked about earlier, Brevin Jordan cutting inside for a first down, Brevin Jordan hurdling a guy and almost, diving in from 6 yards out, 5 yards out or whatever for the end zone. But yeah, the offense just looked the way that you want it to look. And it was clear that Louisville was going to say, okay, we're not going to let you beat us physically running the ball like you did to UAB. And we're going to make you hit some of these throws. And we did. And just the dynamism of the design of some of these plays. I mean, you got, there's that phrase that some people use, high school wide open, because like usually quarterbacks, you want to see the full jersey before you throw it, because then that there's less chance of the ball going in harm's way. So, some people call that high school open. We schemed guys more open than high school open. We schemed them coverage breakdown, yelling at each other on the sideline. What are you doing? You had him. Who got him open? And that happened multiple times. And, it was just such a big step in the direction of what we wanted to see, especially talking about what we had seen in the opener against UAB, that even when you do, look, you got to take into account the Jimmies and Joes, the guys on the field making the plays. But, the system and the setup and the design and the play calls from Rhett Lashley, that's a guy that really flashed for me. And that is what gives me more optimism moving forward, because it was not just one guy making an incredible play against remarkable circumstances. It was the coordinator, the play caller, setting everybody up for success and getting guys, like so wide open that, it was laughable. You know what I mean? It really was. And that, I would say, he, more than any player to me, flashed the kind of excellence that we're looking for.
Yeah, it's a great point, because if you look at offensive efficiency and explosiveness, you can clearly, now typically it's a combination between the athleticism and skill set on the field and the play calling. Usually it's a combination, but there are particular plays, and you noted the one to Knighton. As long as you've got, you can pitch and catch. Any team in America should be able to throw a pass to a wide open dude, and then he just runs, and he's got a 40-yard lead, so he should be able to make it to the house. Of course, Knighton's an extremely talented back, but that's all play calling. That's all on Lashley to scheme that, as Cam designed it for us and showed us the setup to get to that play. But other times, Brevin Jordan catapulting somebody at the 10-yard line and then stretching, and just again, the white on the sideline just got in his way. But otherwise, he's just making a play that few can make in America, regardless of position. And that's sheer athleticism. Now, what led up to that was good blocking, was the play made by the quarterback. The whole thing had to be in sync, and I don't even remember the start of that play. I do remember, I don't remember what the conclusion of this drive was, but because of these whistles that people cannot, and this happened time and time again, to where we see plays all over the place traditionally under normal circumstances in which the play starts, but they're after the whistle. There's a whistle, they still hike the ball and start to, and then everybody lets up, and that's it. But we see, not just in this game, but I think this was the most egregious volume of this happening, plays practically completed where the whistle was blown. And one of those was that Will Mallory play that went for 80 and a touchdown.
And it was 75 down to like the 6, but yeah.
Yeah. And I just thought maybe the right tackle or right guard just barely leaned on that play.
I looked at the replay a million times. People put it up on Twitter. I didn't see any kind of movement. It was just hike. The ball is moving on the snap when you have guys moving, which is the coordination that you work for and everything. But I'm like, I didn't see anything before anybody moved. It wasn't a false start. It wasn't. I don't know what they were looking at. And Yeah, so it was like 75 yards down to the 11 because we were backed up on that drive. But we ended up scoring that drive. I want to say it might have been the same drive with the aforementioned Brevin Jordan plays. You know what I mean? That later on, we convert some third downs and matriculate the ball down the field and we end up scoring. So that was a situation where, Miami overcame a tough circumstance at the beginning of that drive, which, usually or recently had not been the case for the offense and everything. But yeah, the electronic whistles are not 100% because like we can hear them coming through the broadcast feed, but that doesn't necessarily speak to what they're hearing on the field. And we've seen that, across the nation, whether it's NFL or college football as being a thing. But I did just see this morning that I think the ACC might be the conference that is giving, officials the option to use real whistles as opposed to the electronic whistles. I just saw that headline a little bit ago. I was doing something else, so I didn't get to dive into that. But maybe, possibly, potentially, you could see something like that. And again, if it's your personal whistle, and you're not sharing them or things like that, then I don't necessarily see why that would be a bad thing to do, because it's the one that I'm using. It's like, well, you're going to have spit flying and things like that. It's like, well, I mean, you got sweat flying off of these guys on the field for a couple hours. So, I mean, you can't necessarily it's just one. But then again, if you're talking about, propagating coronavirus, then you're talking about it being a respiratory thing. So then the spit would actually be more impactful than the sweat and things like that. So, and I'm just workshopping this as I'm talking it. So it just kind of came to me. But, the electronic whistles was a thing, but, Miami was able to overcome those obstacles and, a game Louisville team, and they started off very strong and things like that. But as the game wore on, it was just it became readily apparent that Miami was the better team and got the result, even though the scoreline was not indicative of how I think dominant the game was, because Miami was better than a 13-point difference in that game, which is what it ended up being. But could have pretty much had a name your score there.
Miami also had to overcome some Mark Pope drops, and I take note of some of the aforementioned plays that we talked about, especially if I know that I am going to get on here and analyze a game. If there's what I consider to be a blown official's call or an egregious error by a player dropping, let's say, it's 1st and 10, they could have gained 14 yards for a first down, but it's just a clear drop. Okay, what happened after that? Because maybe the offense makes up for it. They continue the drive. They still score. So the drop didn't hurt them. Or maybe the drop, they don't convert the first down. That drop would have converted the first down. That kills the drive. We never know what would have happened. I try to take note of that because a lot of people will point to things and say, Mark Pope dropped that 40-yarder. That cost us a touchdown. Well, you scored anyway. And I don't know what the conclusion of that drive was. But just speaking to Mark Pope, he had like 3 or 4 drops. He's hit his quota pretty much for the season.
One would think, and good on him, because he did make a couple catches afterwards. After one, I mean, there was the one up the sideline in the cover 2 hole, like a deep cover 2 hole that the cover 2 hole that Eli Manning hit up the sideline in the Super Bowl. That was like, it was like the 1 in a million throw. Like he was in
Mario Manningham.
To Mario Manningham from the University of Michigan. Exactly. That play. Exactly.
Beautiful.
And that's behind the corner that's sinking in front of the safety on that half of the field. It's like you had this little itty bitty window to get the ball in, and he got it in there. And De'Aaron King got it into a similar window that was a little bit more wide open. And Pope was there back to the sideline and just let it go through his hands and hit him in the breadbasket and fell. And he was able to make a couple more plays, but I need to, you got to catch those ones. I mean, we're scheming you open, we're giving you every opportunity in the world. You have all of the talent in the world. This is a guy who single-handedly helped Miami Southridge to a state championship a couple of years ago, and I saw a couple of those games. He had a couple kickoff returns for touchdowns in that playoff run. They're down late against Orlando Dr. Phillips. They threw a ball up the sideline to D. Wiggins, who is on the Miami Hurricanes as well, but it was also Mark Pope's high school teammate. They call a timeout on 4th in the ball game, and Mark Pope says, run the same play, but flip me and D and put me over there, and I'm going to go in. And he did, or the coach did. They ran the same play. Mark Pope catches the touchdown. Southridge Spartans state champions. Like, we've seen these things where other people in the same position could not make the play. And he says, look, my name is Mark Pope. I wear number 6. Put me over there, and I got you, coach. I need that player now. You know, I need that elite level recruit that we battled everybody in America for, you know, to get here and showcase these talents. And he's still starting, he's still playing heavy snaps and things like that. And look, he should be, and he has all these opportunities, but at some time, potential has to come to performance. And man, I just need you for a receiver, I need you to catch the ball. And I don't need to hear about working on the jugs machine. And I don't need to hear, you're a junior now. You're an upperclassman. You're starting wide receiver at the University of Miami, wearing the number 6 jersey that Santana Moss wore. You know what I mean? You got to catch the ball. Periodpointblank.com in the story. And if you're not going to, then look, we got these freshmen on this team who are ready. They're ready. Keyshawn Smith, I've been talking about him. Michael Redding III already started playing snaps. They didn't target him, but maybe one time in the game. But he, like I said, had that block on the bubble route, on the bubble screen to spring Brevin Jordan for that almost touchdown. So he's already out there. You got Xavier Restrepo wearing number 7 in honor of Bryce Gowdy, his teammate from Deerfield Beach, who had committed to Georgia Tech, but unfortunately passed away like a couple days or something after he signed his letter of intent in December. You know, so he's out there as well. Daz Worsham seems like he needs a mango season before he'll see the field. But I mean, you got at least 3 freshmen. And you got some other guys in the rotation. Jeremiah Payton, unfortunately, you know, because of coronavirus contact tracing or whatever, he didn't make the trip up to Louisville. So maybe some of those snaps could have gone his way. But I mean, you got to make moves now. You know, like every chance is given to our, you know, and earned, you know. So if Mark Pope earned his way on there, cool. But what you're doing on the practice field, I need to start seeing doing on the field. And look, it wasn't just him. Mike Harley had a touchdown and dropped it as well, like in the end zone, in the corner of the end zone, the front left corner there. You know, he dropped the ball. You had another couple guys who dropped balls as well. It was not only Mark Pope. Mark Pope had the most drop balls. But like, yeah, from the receiving group in general, I need to see more consistent play. I need to see better natural catching of the ball. And hey, maybe Jeremiah Payton's back this week, and then he steps up into one of those roles. Maybe D. Wiggins steps into a little larger role. Maybe Mike Harley gets rid of his dropsies. Maybe Mark Pope gets rid of his dropsies. But I mean, De'Aaron King, I still got the stats open because I always do this until I come on. But De'Aaron King had 18 so he completed 60% of his passes, 18 for 30 for 325 and 3 touchdowns. The numbers could have been way better. You know what I mean? He could have been 21 for 27 for 4 something with 4 or 5 touchdowns if guys just catch the ball. So you're not even throwing it all 30 times that we threw it, and you have more completions on there. So, you know, the completion percentage goes up, the attempts go down, the yards per play goes up, and the cricket numbers on the scoreboard are greater than they were. So, you know, it wasn't perfect. And look, you know, I just need it to be not as glaring an issue as it was against Louisville, because again, 47 points, you got some, you know, home run plays and things like that. Those are great. But also I just need those on 2nd and 4. Why can I not have an 18-yard completion on 2nd and 4 and move the chains? You know, it doesn't have to be 3rd and 4 in this high pressure situation. If there's a play to be made, 1st, 2nd, 3rd down, whenever it is, please go make it. That's what we should be doing.
Every team makes mistakes. Every team drops passes, but it shouldn't be 6 or 7 in a game. It should be more like 2.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's understandable to some degree, to a very low-level degree. So let's clean up a few things here. Let's start with Kyle Smith. Thank you so much for the Super Chat contribution, Kyle. Have no idea why our fans were jumping on you like that the other night. Happy we won, but we have a lot to improve on. Thank you for what you guys do. Thank you, Kyle, for the contribution. I will state just one more time in this manner. You shouldn't start a YouTube channel or go online if you don't expect to be criticized. So I have no issue with being criticized. I enjoy the debate. That's why we have it here. And I make the comment all the time that our goal is to have the best discussion, debate, and analysis. So part of that is a debate or discussion. Therefore, I'm going to be challenged, criticized, all those good things. I just so it's fair. That's all I care about. Just so it's fair, and it's actually what I stated. All right. The other thing here is that there was some criticism about our Florida State Live being here on the Miami channel the other night. I understand that coming from Miami fans. It is a Miami channel. Understand that I have adversity hitting me on the main channel. That's why we are here with our live show today with Cam, and I appreciate that you guys are on top of it to the extent that we have 206 people on the line, having just moved this over here from last week. So we hope and expect and are optimistic about things getting cleared up on our main channel. But for right now, anything that could be ACC or Miami related is going to be over here on the Miami channel. So I hate to clutter up our channel here and our Miami content, but we had to move Florida State over here as well. So just click past it. That's all I can say, or dive in and have fun and criticize. But the quote unquote clowns from Florida State will be here for the time being until we can move them elsewhere. All right. We also have Ronan Jones. Thank you so much for the contribution. Ronan, you're here every week and contributing. Thank you so much. Mentally preparing myself to lose my voice this weekend, cheering for this blowout. Keep up the great work, Mark and Cam. Let's hope Miami continues to roll. Go Canes. And Ronan, again, thank you so much for the contribution. It is much, much, much appreciated. All right. I think we have arrived at prediction time on this one. I'm not going to offer mine. I really don't have one. I am weighing this 11-point spread. That's part of my prediction. I believe Miami's the superior football team. I think that's evident, and I hate the small sample size and making that kind of conclusion, but I think it's very clear Florida State has some just core problems with their team and their program right now, but I'll make my prediction later. But I don't think it's going to be any shock that I'm going to pick Miami to win the game. 11-point spread, I believe, based on what we've seen, that Miami should clear that, but I'm going to reserve my judgment on that one for a little bit later, because I think we as football fans tend to jump on that opening game, and I'll dismiss UAB to a certain extent. And Louisville was the real showcase game for this team, obviously, and for Florida State, it was the opener against Georgia Tech. We tend to draw conclusions, and any odds maker, bookie, handicapper will tell you, especially in the NFL, the most money is lost by bettors in week 2 of an NFL season, drawing too many conclusions from week 1 and saying, oh, the Patriots lost 27-24. They're down, that they're not going to be as great as they usually are. Well, Tom Brady, every year he's won a Super Bowl, started 0-1. Is one that I heard from last week.
Did not know that one.
Yeah, I did not know until watching the Tampa Bay game. So Buccaneers fans can still hold out hope.
Well, I mean, but they did make the Super Bowl in the 19-0 season.
But they lost the season.
And they also made it in the other seaon and lost, but I think they won. So okay, all right, that's everyone that they won. But okay, that's fair. But yeah, this is a mismatch, and the only thing that I think is going to keep it close for maybe a quarter or a half at best is the fact that it's a rivalry game. You know, I know that this game is different. Coaches have said it, players have said it, current, former guys just who go to other schools and everything and say, I'm from South Florida, and if I would have picked Miami or Florida State, you already know what it would have been, because the game is different. But they're just not good. They're not Florida State. And Miami is demonstrably better than them. As in, demonstrably through the first 2 weeks of the season. I think, especially what happened, with Florida State against Georgia Tech, and to the point of somebody who just commented that Georgia Tech whooped Miami's ass last year. Yeah, and look at how bad Miami was. You know what I mean? But Florida State last year was nowhere near what Miami is this year. And so we were able to overcome that, that setback. But I mean, when we lost to Georgia Tech, that was in the run of Miami losing. You know what I mean? And I think that that's the same for Florida State. I mean, if you look at where Miami was at the end of last season, I think that's where Florida State is now. Noles Game Day Lou says Louisville's defense is cheeks. Yours isn't much better, to be perfectly honest. And, I already put up my predictions.
Really? You don't think Florida State's defense is significantly better than Louisville's?
No, I don't. I think that they have more individual talented players. I think that, Hamza Nasruddin and Jaden Lars Woodby and Marvin Wilson and Joshua Kando and maybe even Janarius Robinson, maybe if you even want to throw in there Asante Samuel, I think you have names of guys who are better. So, I mean, look, they might be better than Louisville's. They're not going to be the abject tire fire, but they're not, the 2001 Baltimore Ravens, 1985 Chicago Bears defense in comparison either. So they might be a little bit closer, but they're not that great, honestly and truly. So, yeah, I just don't – I think that the wave of emotion might buoy them for Florida State for a quarter, maybe a half. But I think that especially with De'Aaron King leading this team and just with the mentality of not losing to Florida State, and DJ Ivey spoke. DJ Ivey, who had a quiet game against Louisville, which is a good sight to see because he was the one, where we, did single out Mark Pope for some errors this past week. DJ Ivey was getting singled out for some errors in previous weeks. And to have him have a game where he was not mentioned on the broadcast, good, bad, or otherwise, that means we're not saying, oh my God, DJ Ivey got beat, or things like that. And I mean, that was a good step in the right direction. But even he's a guy who said, look, I'm 2-0 against Florida State, and I plan on leaving at 4-0 against Florida State, period, point blank. So I'm going to do what I got to do. I've made plays against them before. You got guys out here who are just, hungry for it. You got Nessa Silvera, looking to really make plays. You had Jalen Phillips, who sat out for a full year. You got Quincy Roche, who I couldn't tell you who Temple's rival game is, but you got a spotlight game against Florida State. De'Aaron King at Houston. Again, I don't know who their rival is, but you're one of the handful 5-6 best quarterbacks in college football. You got yet another primetime ABC national game with game day there, spotlight to make your case for whatever. He was the Maxwell Offensive Player of the Week last week. He was the ACC Quarterback of the Week. You got all kinds of things like that. And you got another great platform on which to showcase your talents. You got all these other guys. Again, yeah, you're playing up against guys who you went to high school with or against. Al Blaze Jr. and Asante Samuel, starting cornerbacks for Miami and Florida State. They played together at St. Thomas Aquinas here in Fort Lauderdale. And now, they're playing against each other, wearing different colors. But again, both of them starting. You got there's a lot going into it. But in the end, I just don't think that Florida State has the talent or the organizational consistency to really keep up with Miami. And we haven't even talked about the fact that Mike Norvell was positive for coronavirus, and he's not even going to coach this game. So you're going in without your head coach into a hostile environment. Okay, sure, it's not going to be as hostile as normal because you're only going to have a maximum of 13,000 student or people in the stadium and things like that. But you're going on the road against a more talented team who's hungry. And look, they've played the last 2 weeks and are rolling, and you had a week off after a bad loss, and your coach is not going to be there. 47-17 Miami. I think it's going to be a blowout. It really is. I just don't see how they keep it within not even just three scores. I don't see how Florida State keeps it within 3 touchdowns, absent just, an atrocious FIU level, Louisiana Tech level performance from 2019 from the Hurricanes. I just don't see it being close at all.
I know, Cam, you're going to be able to follow me on this point. Hopefully, I will explain it clear enough that other people will be able to follow me. There are cliches or there are circumstances known to sports fans as being matter of fact truth that have never been proven. The trap game, the rivalry game, these things in terms of the way the game should be played and the results being in question because I've heard this in the NFL. It's a division game. It's going to be close. It's a division game. It's a rivalry game in college football. It's going to be closer than, or we can't, we need to throw out the records. It's a trap game. We all understand what the trap game is. You got a good team on your schedule. 2 weeks later, you've got another really good team on your schedule. In between, you've got a capable opponent that could be disregarded. That's a trap game. There are a few other variations of it. I understand the concept, but it's never been proven to me whether the trap game or the rivalry game actually statistically plays into the narrative, meaning, again, rivalry game, throw out the records. Really? Can we throw out the records of Oregon State? No, I think Oregon kills them most of the time.
Yeah, but that's a level of disparity. If you have comparable level talent, and look, in some cases you can say that because it's not necessarily empirically proven. But if you look back during Florida State's run against Miami, there were games where Miami should not have been close. But Miami was leading those games in the fourth quarter and found ways to lose. So, it's a factor to a point, but I think that Miami was in an infinitely better position in all of those games than Florida State is this year.
But I'll counter with, you can take any elite or top level program in the country and they will randomly struggle against, whether they lose the games or not is another question, another result, but will struggle against certain teams that are not rivals on the schedule. So them struggling against a inferior rival may just be a random off game.
I mean, you could say that, but I mean, I think the thing consistently is you're going to have that rival on the schedule annually, and so it's easier to point to that one. You know what I mean? As opposed to like, yeah, Clemson has bossed up a couple of times. Or sorry, not Clemson, Pittsburgh. Or a random team. It's been Pittsburgh, it's been Syracuse, you know what I mean? But it's like not necessarily like, okay, the Clemson South Carolina game. You know, that's the game or whatever, you know, but in terms of Florida and Florida State. And I mean, that's an outlier because Clemson are just like they're on a different level than most programs in America, you know, but like, yeah, they still struggle with some teams? Yes. Is it going to be consistently in a rivalry situation? No. But if you look in some of these rivalry game situations, I mean, at least anecdotally, from my estimation, where these teams do try harder, play better, and close the otherwise large gap between teams just based upon the emotion and the want to and the effort given that 1 week. Because, again, like I used to have a locker in the locker room in high school next to this dude, but this dude is now on the other sideline. And so like, I got to be sure because like, you know, me and him both like tried to talk to Shantiqua or whatever in high school. So like if Shantiqua happened to be watching the game or whatever, I want her to see this, my team or, you know, like things like there's like things like that.
I completely agree with that. And I understand that. And it can't be measured, but we all know what incentives we have in our own personal life. Just extend those to the football field. And yes, those players that played together at different levels going up through high school, and then suddenly you're on the field against that guy that you know, that there's a little bit more incentive there because the people you know he knows, and you can talk for the next year if you're able to beat him for a 75-yard touchdown or your team's going to win the game. I don't discard any of that. It just hasn't been proven to me statistically that that's the case. Alabama's better than Auburn. They beat them most of the time, but Auburn's really good, so they do beat Alabama more than occasionally. So that pretty much makes sense with Alabama playing anybody else of Auburn's class. They beat them most of the time, but that team jumps up and beats them because they're a top 15 type team.
Right.
Kind of.
And I mean, I think the margins are thinner as well in the consideration. But yeah, you know, so I mean that maybe if somebody could prove that, but I do hear you that it has not been, you know, statistically proven or anything like that. But, you know, like I said, the point of fact is Miami by 4 or 5 touchdowns this week. I think that Miami minus 11 is free money. And I think that they're going off of the fact that they're going off the team name on the front of Florida State's jerseys. You know, I think you're going with the brand to keep that at 11. But I don't really see, like I said, I don't see them being within 3 touchdowns. I really don't.
And the thing about a number like 11 is that this could be, Florida State could come out and play lights out above their heads. And this game is 21-all going into the fourth quarter, and Miami still beats them by 17. So they score 2 touchdowns in a field. You know, it could be one of those games where Florida State hangs in, does everything they possibly can to maintain within 1 score with 10 minutes left, and then Miami just races away in the last 10 minutes, still wins by 17 or 20. I could definitely see that. Or I could see Miami leading 17-0 in the first quarter.
Right. And, you know, this is a thing where you have to consider style of play as well. And Bud Elliott, who's now at 247 Sports, used to be the managing editor and founder of Tomahawk Nation when he was running that website. He spoke about it. He said, you know, like teams sometimes, you know that you're not going to win, so you play not to get blown out as opposed to playing to win. And in a couple of those games, previously between Miami and Florida State, Miami played not to get blown out in certain situations. If you're going to choose to punt here, if you're going to choose, you know, as opposed to, you know, on the 40-something yard line, you go for it on 4th and 2 if you're trying to win. You punt it on 4th and 2 to give the opposing offense a long field if you're trying not to get blown out, because statistically, the further the drive is, the longer the drive is, the lower the points expected per drive is. So, you know, you're giving your defense more of a chance. So like, okay, maybe they drive for a field goal as opposed to getting a short field and getting a touchdown, which is going to make it 17 or 24 point difference as opposed to a 10 or 13 point difference, which optically is different, is very different. So, you know, you got to look and see, you know, are they going to be aggressive? Are they going to take these chances and these shots, knowing that if they don't make them, then you're putting Miami in a positive situation to come, on the back end of that, where there could be a short fourth down or like a punt versus go for it or trick play or, whatever, things like that. Those all play a factor. So, we're going to see, I think, early on whether, and obviously at the beginning, Florida State's going to play to win. Herm Edwards, you play to win the game, like duh. But, let's say, and this is something I foresee happening. Let's see, Miami gets out to a 20-7 or a 21-3 or whatever kind of a lead. Let's see what happens then. And like I said, I've been on the other side of this. I've seen it from, Miami being down by those margins. And then, you go operation shutdown. You try to slow that game down. You try to slow your tempo on offense because you're going to bleed some clock. Even if I know I'm only going to get one first down that drive, that's going to be 4 minutes of game time as opposed to a quick 1, 2, 3 and out with 2 incompletions. So it's only 27 seconds and they get the ball back and they have all this time. So you got to watch the way that the game develops as well. And the other thing, now that I had mentioned Bud Elliott, one other thing that he and I had joked about back in the day after going to a recruiting camp together. Then we went out for, wings and beer, and we're just, shooting the breeze and, talking about Florida or Miami and Florida State and all kinds of different things. I want to see, or it's a thing that I always tag him in when I see it on Twitter, left-handed skill player trick plays, because the normal assumption is everybody's right-handed. Pretty much every quarterback that you see, Alex Hornibrook accepted, is a right-handed quarterback. Everybody's right-handed, except for like Tua and Hornibrook and who was the guy? Kellen Moore.
Moore. Yeah.
And Matt Leinart and one of the Sims brothers. I forget which one. But outside of those 5 guys in the last 16 years, there's very few quarterbacks that are left-handed. And we, talked
Matt
about
McGloin left-handed. Anyway,
McGloin was right-handed
well done.
State. But so when you see a trick play, something like trick-ish going on, the expectation is that the skill player is going to be right-handed. And all of a sudden, this dude who's sprinting to his left throws the ball with his left hand with practice accuracy and strength. They're like, oh my God, left-handed player trick plays. I don't know who is left-handed on their roster, but I promise you, go through my feed. If you search it on Twitter, Underwood Sports, left-handed trick play and Bud Elliott, I promise you, I've tagged him over the course of many years. Anytime I've seen it in any game, by the way, not just Miami and Florida State, in any game. So I'm on the lookout for something like that. Well, because first of all, I think that the Florida State is going to have to go to some kind of trick plays to be competitive. We saw that the last time that they were down here when they had the double forward pass because, they tried to trick play but couldn't execute it properly and other things like that. I think that they're going to have to go to a trick play pretty early because if they play to tendencies and they play like standard, I don't think that they compete. So they're going to have to do some things differently. And I'm interested to see if they have any left-handed skill player trick plays because they usually work because, again, people don't expect skill players to be left-handed. Like Jarvis Landry. Yeah, Jarvis Landry was one who I saw when he was with the Dolphins, and he's left-handed. But, he's a wide receiver, so he's just built like a wide receiver, running like a wide receiver, and then, boom, throws the ball 60 yards with his left hand. So that's the thing to watch out for as well.
Michigan and Nebraska have had either second or third string quarterbacks in the last 5 years that were – no, for Michigan, it was further back. It was like Clayton Rich Rod or a –
yeah. Clayton Richard, he ended up being a pitcher for the White Sox. He was a big-time recruit, yeah.
Yes. And Nebraska had one a few years ago that barely played, but he was a left-handed. And then I had to go, that was a great synopsis over the last, let's say, 10 to 20 years. I had to go back to, off the top of my head, Kenny Stabler,
right?
Steve Young, Cade McNown.
Okay, Cade McNown, yeah. But
Mark Brunell, lefty.
Mark Brunell. But it's very few. We've named like 10 or 12 of the list. Like there's not many more past that. Which is why a left-handed skill player trick play is so surprising because you don't expect that to happen. You expect it, okay, you're going to run it to the offense's right because you have a guy going to his strong side and things, but he's running this way and it's a reverse. And all of a sudden now I can throw it because I'm actually left-handed, which is not a thing that you would really pay attention to before the game because like guys just, they throw it and they catch it. But you watch the quarterbacks throw, you don't watch the receivers throw it back. It's just whatever. And then maybe during a game they have something like that. So, yeah, I mean, I think that trick plays, especially from Florida State side, are going to be a thing that happened in this game. But I'm always on the lookout for a left-handed skill player trick play after I had that conversation with Bud Elliott like 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. And yeah, I've always they stick out like a sore thumb. They just do, and things like that. But I think that again, this plays into the are you playing to win? Or are you playing not to get blown out? And I think that early or in a perfect situation, I think that you're going to see them try to go for a trick play, just because again, I don't think that they can just line up and run the plays and beat Miami. I don't foresee that at all. So they're going to have to try to, trim the margins and, play some smoke and mirrors and do some other kinds of things because, yeah, they're not going to line up 1-to-1 and just beat us. They're just not this year. And look, there were years that Miami wasn't going to do that against Florida State. Look, and I've said it before, 2014 down here, yeah, that's when we went heavy personnel, 21, 2 backs, 1 tight in the huddle, which screams I formation run. And then we come out with that personnel and went 5 wide and hit Clive Walford down the seam for 61-yard touchdown against Florida State's large, big personnel on defense who were then spread out. So that was the trick where we hinted at one thing by personnel grouping and then did something else by alignment and play design. So that could be it or something. But I mean, look, like I said, Miami's had to do it too. We weren't going to line up against Florida State in 2014 just with the I formation and run the ball and win that. No, we had to hit I formation, go 5 wide, and get the matchup that we needed and hit it for a home run. That's what we had to do to be competitive. And I really, honestly, and truly think now, good. I don't necessarily think that Miami is where Florida State was in 2014, as in reigning defending national champions with the current reigning Heisman Trophy winner on the roster, with the Dalvin Cook on the roster. It's not completely analogous, but it's similar enough where we had to do some non-standard things to compete against them because they were better. And I think that Florida State's going to have to do some non-standard things to compete against us because currently Miami is better.
The analogy probably holds because you're probably better. You were probably better in 2014 than Florida State is now.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, but again, if you're trying to say the analogy, I'm not saying that Miami is where Florida State was in 2014. Yeah. I'm just saying that there's a team that was better than the other one. And so the inferior team in terms of talent had to do some other things to compete. And that's what I'm saying, that we are more talented. I think that we're going to be more successful this season. And Florida State, in comparison, not being as talented, not probably going to be as successful this season, is going to have to do some different things. Again, it was not an apples-to-apples comparison of 2020 Miami and 2014 Florida State. I would not do that. I did not say that. Anybody who gets on the internet and says that I did is a liar.
I'm going to address one comment here, and then I'm going to let everybody know that if you made a comment in the live chat and you want me to address it, Cam's not going to have the time. He's given us 75 minutes here. But if you want me to address anything that's been commented toward me, I'm not going to be able to catch up with it in the live chat because we're nowhere near getting close to all the comments and the questions. But if you copy and paste it, you leave it in the comments section of any of the Miami videos on this channel, I am going to address all the comments that are directed toward me. I'm only going to address now this one comment very briefly. So I was on Pigskin's Pete's show on Monday, and we are doing a segment every Monday, doing a live stream every Monday at noon. The turnover chain was brought up. Right. Go back and watch that video. Anybody who would question what my comments were about the turnover chain, because they are not being represented there by Daniel Gross whatsoever. This was my comment. On the positive side, I said, I can respect Miami because they were the first. They were the ones that established this, and then everybody else were copycats.
I will say, just to interrupt really quickly, Miami was not the first, but we did it best.
Okay.
And the other teams, they were kind of just like really chintzy, and we kind of really dedicated the design and the thought to it and took it from just like a cheap thing, like on paper on the sideline, to like a real thing. And then others followed. But we were not the first originators, but we did take it more seriously and made it to the level that you're seeing other people with props and things. That's all I'm going to say.
So I got that wrong for the reason that people get that wrong for a lot of things down through history, that if you do it the best and you are who you are, you may get credit for being the first.
Exactly.
And I would have said, yeah, Miami was the first. I certainly thought that they were. But they've done it the best. They've done it in the way that everyone thinks of turnover chain, and the rest you have to be an ardent fan to know, okay, this school does that and that school does that. They have done it, yes, the best, the most, the way in which everyone thinks of that celebration. Okay, so I gave them credit and they don't need my credit, but I stated that. My comments were made as an old guy, and I even stated that I can't relate to getting excited about a turnover chain, but I'm not 20 years old. And I stated that I have to check my comments at the door as being an old guy, so I can't relate to the excitement and going nuts over a turnover chain. And those are pretty much my comments. So I don't know that I was really dissing the turnover chain. I was relating my experience to a 20-year-old and saying I can't relate to them. That's all that was.
Yeah. I mean, look, things are different. They are, and hey, there's a generational thing to it as well. But yeah, Miami did not do it first, but Miami does do it best in terms of the turnover chain and things like that. But I mean, yeah, it's not just saying that it's not for you does not mean that it's not good. You know what I mean? Like some of today's new music, not for me. Some people would fight me and say it's really good. That's fine. That's cool. That all right. If you like it, I love it for you. It's just not necessarily for me. That's all I'm saying.
Houston Canes, thank you so much for the contribution. And again, I don't want to misrepresent myself. We love the discussion, the debate, the analysis, and that's what we want and I certainly want to be held accountable. And anytime I have anybody on here, there were a number of comments made about kicking people off and challenging people and so forth and so on. So I will only challenge a guest if they say something factually wrong or just completely unreasonable based on history, experience, so forth, or illogical. Otherwise, I'm not challenging my guess. All right. Cam Underwood, State of the U, obviously going to be loaded up with Florida State preview content.
Yeah, no, it's already loaded up. We have a story stream going for Rivalry Week because, we own the moments over at SB Nation and State of the U. And so we try to do that every single year. As I'm looking right now, we have 17 different pieces posted this week. Oh, my position by position starters for a combined roster of Miami and Florida State just posted while we were talking. So go be sure and you check out to see if you combine these rosters who would start. And I've been doing this for a couple years, and I've linked back to some of those other pieces so you can see that and see how the numbers have shifted over time. But we have that and much more. We got a question and answer going with Tomahawk Nation, which I'm posting tomorrow. We have the second installment of our roundtable discussion with our State of the U contributors about Miami, Florida State going up later today. We have tons and tons and tons of stuff right now, but especially all of the time for Miami Hurricanes athletics. So be sure that you check us out. StateOfTheU.com is the website. Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at The State of the U. My personal Twitter account is at Underwood Sports. But I do talk about HGTV shows and Below Deck and video games and other things like there as well. So just be sure that you know about that when going in, because I do talk about sports, but I talk about life and other things as well. But whether it's here, there, or anywhere, we appreciate you and your support. So please come and fan with us and look forward to a decisive, demonstrable blowout win from the Hurricanes over the Noles on Saturday. Let's go.
Way over 250 at our peak. We appreciate Cam, and I hope all of you do too, and realize what he brings to the table each and every week for us. Cam, enjoy the game. Everybody else do the same, and we will be here each and every day. See you soon.
Bye, guys.